to judge PLA's future activities, I think the best reference is a history. We're not using force against anybody.
So what do you say to Southeast Asians who are worried about China's moves in the South China Sea?
To a certain extent, I understand the concern because the concerns of small countries are natural. But I have heard something from Southeast Asia when people say when two elephants fight, the grass suffer. But when two elephants make love, the grass also suffer. So that means the concern is always there.
Is China helping to militarize Southeast Asia?
On the contrary, I think China is helping them to meet the request. For example, if all these countries believe China is a threat, how can you buy your weapons from your enemy? And how would your enemy provide you weapons? That means these countries are not taking China as a real threat.
In other words, basically a more domestically, regionally focused navy to being a blue water navy where you can go anywhere in the world, and also it's a projection of China's interests?
My answer to your question is yes. And I believe the process has already started since China sent its first task force to the Gulf of Aden by the end of 2008. The big question is how China is going to utilize its military strength, not only for China's national interest, but for the well-being of other people. If you look at what PLA is doing around the globe, I think people may feel assured that the PLA, the largest armed force in the world, is making its due contribution to world peace. If you compare PLA with some other Western countries, what is the point of having war almost non-stop, for decades? What have they produced? They produced nothing other than the deaths of innocent civilians, exodus of endless refugees, and probably a few thousand body bags for the soldiers themselves. China is not having war with anybody, but during the whole period, China is not short of challenges, be it a bombardment of China's embassy in Yugoslavia, be it the collision of Chinese aircraft with American aircraft. China has managed all this with reason, with restraint.
If the United States is on the retreat here in Asia, would China fill that space?
I don't believe the United States will leave Asia. I never understand why the United States would consider China want to drive them out of West Pacific, because logically, the United States is indeed an Asia-Pacific country, because it is facing the Pacific Ocean. China is defensive, so we would not be aggressive towards them, and we would not fill in the so-called vacuum, even if they leave, because they won't leave.
So China, as the large elephant in Asia, will not be stomping on the grass?
I think the Asia is big enough, the Pacific Ocean is enough, China is not the only elephant, and China would be very careful not to walk to damage any grass.